Hello, everybody. Today is May 11th,
No.
Crypto Carnage Day, Stock Carnage Day. If you're watching at a later date, the brief recap on the market for today was we had the S&P down 53 in the futures, the Dow futures down 230. Looks like the cash was down around 300. The bonds were higher. Crypto was absolutely flattened. All sorts of rumors about Citadel teaming up with BlackRock to destroy the Tether thing. I'm sure the news will come out. Today we're joined by a dear friend of mine and grizzled veteran with many war stories, Paul Hornblower, who's been a guest before. And so we're really grateful to have him. He's joining us from the Dominican Republic, which may somehow affect our internet connection.
No.
And we'd like to all welcome you. It's a well-deserved cocktail today.
Actually, since you mentioned, I don't know if you said may have a stable connection. It's stable right now. Sorry about my throat. I sound like Lori Lightfoot. But it wasn't so stable earlier in the week. It was in the middle when, and I should probably explain this, in the middle of Jerome Powell's either testimony or questions. I'm not exactly sure when it went out, but it stopped taking my orders. I put in orders thinking that they were in, but they weren't in because they'd cut the feed because my internet is third world, even though I pay dearly for this unstable feed. It's like $60, which is a lot of money here. Well, it was anyway. It has the same problems that we have. But anyway, when I came, well, I was short at the time, and when the feed came back, since I don't have a television, I only have. Well, I can sometimes get certain things from. What's the name of that radio?
Bloomberg?
No, from the satellite radio.
Sirius.
Yeah, I have Sirius and the other thing, but long story short, when it came back on, it had not taken my stop. I was not covered, and so I wasn't able to get out of my shorts, and so I was somehow, I still can't figure it out, but I was long at the dead low, and since I had no news about what sent us down sharply, we were down 30 handles or something, and then from there I reversed my position to be short again because we had just dropped 50 handles during his press conference, and then it proceeded to rally straight up 150 handles after I had reestablished a large short position.
Hey, when you were standing in the S&Ps, did you ever see action like this?
Yes. When Greenspan did an ease, when he knew that the entire pit was net short, and then he did a secret ease in the middle of the day that was not at all telegraphed. I was the only one that saw the screen, since everybody else was looking at brokers except foolish me, who was actually looking at the screen. I saw the only one, and you remember Eric Smith yep. Actually pointed toward the screen, and he made the same sound that they made in the movie Body Snatch Invasion. The remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers had a certain sound that what's his name? Oh God. At the end, the last scene of the last shot of the movie was him making this screeching noise when they find the person who hasn't been.
I mean, but that was just in the case of the being in the spruce, and it was a surprise rate cut, is what you're not secret, but surprise, right? And rate cut in the you were in the bottom of the pit. In those days, for those people who don't know what it was like.
Well, I'm going to go back. Yeah, well, okay, let me just get back and finish the pit. You want to talk about the pit? Just remind me to finish about the 150 large short position and how many hundreds of thousands, and what to do psychologically about that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who's watching, who's an active trader, is probably
Event like that, which, say it again.
I'm saying, I mean, today, right? They dropped 100, they rallied 100, then they ping ponged 50 handles back and forth a bunch. Then they sold off 100, then they rallied 50, and then they sold off 50.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of at a loss to name a prior time in history. I mean, typically haven't our down moves been sort of straight line vertical, sort of simple moves, right? They were like in 87, it was a crash. In the 2008, it was a crash. In 2000, it was kind of straight down. This is the first time that it's kind of being back and forth as it's going down.
Oh.
Right. And so, I mean, what would you tell the people who have never seen this before?
Well, for one thing, these massive shocks. I mean, I've never. This mirrors what happened when there was that secret ease with the Greenspan, which blew me out of the S&Ps for the second time. First in 87 and then in 97. At least in 97, I lasted about a year and a half. In 87, I only lasted about 6 months. But my hearing is not that great. I've compromised hearing, and that's one of the reasons I
that was an M80 in Chinatown on Chinese New Year.
No, it was much more than an M80. You know, at the end of a major firework, you have that boom.
Yep.
It was one of those, and it went off right next to my ankles, and the explosion was the magnesium explosion was about 18 inches, and it was right by my feet.
In Chinatown, right?
Yeah, I was in Chinatown during New Year's, and that was bad. And then I went to, someone spoke really loudly into my ear at the loudest party I've ever been at. And between the two, is the video lagging for anyone? Someone?
No, I haven't looked. Let me see. It might be in the chat.
It might be.
Hi, Lords. Is the video lag? It might be. He's coming all the way from the Dominican Republic, which is third world.
No, but I have a fast. I can check my feed, but it's
you know.
I can tell you exactly what my speed is, and it seems like it's very good to have this good video, because, you know, in the old days I could never ever have something like this.
Hey, you know, when we've sold the top,
I've got 23 megs.
23.
Okay. That's a lot.
For the Dominican Republic, it is a lot. Anyway, look, when we were selling we spent years selling the highs, right? And the highs were like these long drawn out affairs, right? And they were just like, it was a battle of attrition just to hold your shorts till they eventually rolled over. And then now it seems like this is just a slow grind down, right? It's like, how do we, I've never traded this in 40 years. You've never seen this, I'm guessing.
Well, we've seen crashes.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen crashes, but not like the VIX isn't exploding, right? And everyone's, you know, it's just like, what is the disaster? Today's disaster was crypto. You know, the other day it could have been Netflix and you know, ARK and the NASDAQ and
the thing that I keep coming back to in my mind, as per what I made some notes.
Well, thanks. Get after it.
Well, okay, but that means I need more light.
Okay, I thought you were going to say you need another drink.
Well, it's between the rum against the honey propolis solid thing. I have honey and propolis for my throat.
Before we get into the notes, what's your current PO?
My current pose, well, unfortunately, because of Fancy Shoes, whose name will go unreported, down 30% in my equity position there,
Right.
down 20% in another massive position with a better manager who's only put half of the money to work.
Oh, good.
Um,
Relatively speaking.
still not good. The only thing that's good is that I also have 50% undeployed. So
That's so dry
so that
powder. That's
so
decent.
I have a 45 to 50% cash position.
And then what about
Um,
in any other positions? You have silver?
yeah, I'm short a ton. Excuse me, I'm long a ton of silver. I cannonballed to double my position, possibly triple my position yesterday. I've got a combination of calls and mostly futures.
Uh-huh. Are you going to ride that one? Is that kind of a bareback, or is it you just
Well, it's bareback at the moment, but I mean, I've been schooled before.
mm.
I don't know how much more pain I can take. I've already been absolutely slaughtered in silver.
If you
So,
get a bounce in the stocks, are you going to lighten up, or are you going to own them until that you can't anymore? What you're thinking there on the longs, like everybody's looking for
well,
a bounce, right?
I'll tell you, I sent to the secretary of Fancy Shoes, I said, what does it take for me to shift my position over to interactive and take it out of your hands altogether? And she said, I've told the team, and we will not trade your account anymore. I felt like saying, you haven't traded in 4 months, excuse me, what are you talking about? But I thought I would spare her since she's always been very kind as the administrator. Kind and able, unlike all the people above her.
Hey, do you think there's a corollary here? Like everybody's kind of fallen for the same thing. Paul, when he speaks of Fancy Shoes, he's talking about a very well-dressed friend of ours, comes from, uh, you know,
Yeah, don't identify, please.
no, I won't, who comes from a well-established background in the finance industry that we knew from the ring, who was representing a fund that was predominantly tech.
Yeah, all growth.
And
Down
so
30%.
yeah, since January 1, Paul allocated some money on January 1. And Paul and I had been talking about how it's very easy to fall for a well-dressed storyteller. And
Well,
do you,
wait. Let me answer what you asked before,
okay.
because I think it's very germane, and that is, what do I intend to do? And unlike most people, and I've been fighting Fancy Shoes every inch of the way, and finally I had to lay it all out. I said, for distribution, because I want his entire team to see this, and they're young kids. They don't know from Shinola, and they have not made a trade in 4 months. And I said, so I finally told him, I said, this, I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you less about the outlook. I said 2 generations to fix this. So it's going to be a long term stagflation, similar to 1936 to 1974. And we're just going to go sideways, choppy, chop suey, as I like to call it, for the next 2 generations. Why wouldn't it be that? We have done incalculably immoral things to the future by dragging demand forward. Shame on us, and shame on us. Shame on the neocons for pouring weaponry into
But
far away Ukraine. It's all so shockingly wrong-footed. But to answer your question, I'm going to sell lows. I'm going to get out, because there's no point in going sideways with people that don't move. I mean, how could anyone go 30% in a straight line? It wasn't completely straight. They retraced to down 10%, and then it went immediately to down 30% growth. So yes, I will get out. I will get out, and I won't have anything except
I mean,
maybe I don't know exactly what I'll have, but I'm sort of stuck with a bunch of equity right now.
I was talking to you the other day about how I thought the market was very close to breaking and the way they were moving, and then there was no stability, there's no sort of confidence, there's no bid. The only bid is the Fed. And you were cheering me up. I think it was the first time we've ever had that, where you were cheering me up. You're like, look, it's going to be volatile. It's going to be great trading. You were like, bring it on. This is what we've been training for. This is what we've been waiting for. And so, and I'm thinking that the public has made the same mistake that you made falling for the well-dressed storyteller with the fancy shoes.
Idiot.
In
Me.
regard, well, yeah, and the public is the same in regards to first listening to Powell as though he was the savior, and then it was transitory. And now,
who would believe that?
right? But
all they can do is, first of all, when they lie without compunction, because they think they're doing a favor keeping the wheels on. And it was like when Yellen snapped when she was chair, she said, well, I mean, did your business to a senator. She snapped at a senator, said, well, if you could do it, if you could fix it, then I wouldn't have to be lying to you all.
And so, I mean, everybody is, we're at that point now where we understand completely, or that, that what they say, they talk, right? They talk the tightening game, but the balance sheet remains at the highs. And, inflation is 8% and the Fed funds rate is 1%. And so,
yeah,
right. Obviously we can rail about their credibility, and but I mean, essentially we're doing a post-mortem as though everybody can fall. It's not just you that fell for the well-dressed storyteller. It's like everybody else fell for the well-dressed storyteller, and the market held in there for a while, and then all of a sudden,
Edmund Burke, in a really long time ago, at least 1820, maybe a little bit longer, but around 1820, I think, he wrote the agreement between the generations. He might have called it the pact,
or the compact, or something.
The compact, right? Between the generation, the intergenerational agreement, and it simply says that you don't make it any worse. It's similar to the Hippocratic Oath. You don't do any harm. And all he was saying was you don't leave them with nothing, with less than nothing, which is precisely what we've done. So, I mean, where did we have the
moral
ill
compunction,
intention,
right?
the ill intention, the bad intention to junk what was perfectly reasonable for 200 years? It's just, what can you say? I mean, it's just it's beyond immorality. Well, we have other words for it, but which we won't say, but it's pure. I'll put it that way. It's whatever it is, it's pure.
The understanding is that if you're listening and that you're frustrated with the fact that it's been a sea change in direction in the prices of assets, and yet what you're hearing from the people that supposedly had your back, had the Fed put, and so that realization, that people are going through of like, oh my God, they're not going to save us. They can't.
Well, they can't, because the spears are in the door of the middle class and fiat is crumbling. Yeah, the level of corruption, if you will, about all of the accommodation and the inflation begotten from just this insanity in the White House, not and on down Treasury. It's just they can't. Well, it's too late, because there was too many. The cows are out of the barn.
Yeah, it's way too
So
late now. I think it's
yeah,
almost as though now everyone's having this forced awareness that that what they said isn't gonna make it better, and that they've, in a sense, like you say, right? They partied it up, and now the bill has come, or that the future's generations
well,
outlook.
again, it is because they have to be more meaningful in their tightening, much more meaningful than they have been. They have to go with the 75s and even with the hundreds, because otherwise we have civil issues to deal with. And
Right. I mean, right. Here comes summer, and it'll make the riots when asset
yeah,
prices really start going down, make Black Lives Matter look like nothing. How come Zimbabwe never happened for our stuff?
well, it hasn't happened yet.
Right. So they will.
It could easily happen. And it could also happen by drips, because the tightening is by drips. Why wouldn't Zimbabwe happen by drips?
Right. It was almost like a managed Zimbabwe on the way up, as though they
Yeah.
wanted to, right? They wanted to
Well,
inflate asset prices, blow out the money supply, and just make sure that it didn't run away to the upside.
it did run away to the upside because of the level the level of accommodation was just absurd, and so they're never going to be able to. And I mean, the fact, really, it's just so depressing to think that oh no, we won't do 75s.
Right.
Yeah, we won't do 75s. We'll be doing twos. When the
That's
cities
fine. All right.
are on
Cheers.
fire.
Right. Right. For real. Can't find baby formula today. Anyway.
Lori Lightfoot said more violence. She said she wants more violence. She doesn't have
Yeah.
enough.
And okay, so everyone's watching now. They're coming to terms with that. They're trading 3,900, not 4,800. The crypto markets just had the rug pulled out from underneath it. That doesn't bode well for real estate. Certainly the job market, the wage growth is going to be flat because the market's lower, and so there's no real pressure on companies to give people raises when their stock is down 80%. So, I mean, so back to your original pep talk, which is a once in a 30-year experience, where you were like, hey, come on, this is our time, right? Like, bring it on, I think is what you actually said, bring it on, right?
Well, I mean, having been so overwhelmed by being in 4 different lawsuits down here in the third world with 4, I kid you not, 4 different lawyers. I'm going through the lawyers. I put one on the shelf and I bring another one on because I can't get what I need done. I know this morning I talked to the syndicate of these codgers, and it's really too much. I won't go into all of that, but I mean, I get the mayor, I get friendly relations with the whole syndicate and the mayor, and this really corrupt construction manager who's wearing multiple hats. And so it unfortunately, I got stuck in these equity positions, which I couldn't hedge again. I couldn't hedge out.
I mean, come on. What do you tell the people who are listening? Like, they're joining us for a beer, and they're like, "Holy shit, we've never seen this before."
Yes.
Like, and
okay, all right. Let me just touch on that. If you have been slaughtered, as I have been, and you feel like, hide all the sharps, lock up the ammo. I understand. I understand your desperation. Believe me. You have to breathe. Try to get a hold of your emotions. That's the only way out of the nightmare.
I mean, can we just go through your trading rules? You use correlations, you use divergences, right? You have a solid method, right?
Well,
I mean, you have never written it down, but right, you trade, you look for correlations.
Yeah, well, I'm a perma bear. Let's be
Right.
obvious.
Right. You are a perma bear with good reason. I mean, we're talking about the Ponzi that's coming unraveled, and it is coming unraveled as we speak.
I'm a
Um,
perma bear who got stuck long because of two managers. Wow, was that costly? Oh
but
my God.
but the victim mindset is not rewarded in this game, as you know, right?
Yes,
Like,
that's right.
right. I mean,
Oh yeah,
we've had
nobody cares.
right. Nobody cares. And how's this, right? I've talked Walter back from being blown out twice, you back from being blown out twice, and you've talked me from being blown out at once. So
Well,
for all the,
I was so poor. I was so poor for so long. I've blown out more than anybody. I've blown out 100 times.
I know, but you're
But
also one of the bigger shooters out there. So for all these people out there, I mean, over all these experiences, you still have a method for what you're doing, which is valid, right? You look for
well,
correlations, you look at internals,
what
right?
I really want is what you have and what I don't have, and that is
The
like
HF
tech volatility and HFT um, HFT
alert,
acceleration,
right? Yeah,
alerts and
right,
acceleration and momentum. I
right,
don't
and
have that.
right, that you can. They're having a school anyway. To people who are listening, they're Lucci and Charlie are bringing on Steve Hammer's HFT Alert, which is a great program that is predominantly using internals and the momentum associated with the internals, looking at divergences, correlations,
Yeah.
which is what you use, right, Paul? Forever. You've been using divergences and correlations.
Yes, well, that's right, but I don't have it as refined, and I feel that I'm really sorely lacking without it, and that's why
Right.
I will be taking that course.
Yep. And so to all those people, but the understanding is that if you're just freewheeling it and using an emotional based stop, given the size of the moves and the lack of liquidity, you have to lean against something other than your emotions in this market.
Well, the stops are problematic, but
Yeah.
kind of necessary. And then you have the nightmare scenario that I had with the loss of feed. And so, I mean, when things happen that are out of your control completely, and it's incredibly debilitating in terms of equity, that's a really hard one to come back from.
Yeah.
I will be recovering from that for maybe a year or two.
Do you think that you really still believe the silver, huh? Like in the face of,
I hope so.
I
I
mean, it's
mean, I
just the
did. I
cheap,
cannonballed. I don't know if I made that clear. I cannonballed more than double my position at yesterday's low.
and you don't have any crypto, right?
No, I have crypto.
Oh, you do?
Not a huge amount, but I have. Yeah, I do. I
I
do,
mean,
and I'm.
I mean,
Yeah,
people out there,
it's
I
not.
mean, like people out there have got to be like, if we were sitting at the bar, I'd be like, hey, what do you think? I have no idea. And for the first time, I mean, if you have an idea, chime in
Oh
because
yeah, questions.
yeah, for real.
And
Um,
I'll look at my notes. Where's my
yeah,
light? Where's my
and
flashlight?
so it's been, I tell you, from my own experience, it's been as wild as I've seen it. And I stood in the ring in '87 and all the way through. I saw in 2008, I watched this guy almost take out UBS. And this is more orderly. Don't you think it's kind of orderly, Paul?
Yeah, that's what makes me nervous.
Right? And
You know,
and
we haven't had what I would call a crash. It's been too orderly.
yeah,
So
as
no
though
washout yet.
they're trying to fight inflation by managing the stocks lower. As though, and at the same
Yeah,
time, they're like keeping a lid on the VIX. So they keep trapping people into trying to buy the dip because the VIX isn't making, there's a VIX divergence, right? The VIX isn't doing it, but all it is Janet and company out there making sure that things don't get too out of control on the downside.
right.
It's like she won't call you back. It's just like you keep
Uh,
waiting for the bounce that never comes. You keep waiting for the phone call that
I
never
think
comes.
she said something yesterday that was extremely annoying. Her voice drives me absolutely crazy. I should talk since I sound like Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, and so all right, so people are watching, they're like, well, Jesus, it's been whack. All right, and you guys have been around for 100 years. So if you're blown out, you can come back. If you're not blown out, make sure you get some sort of rules. If you're not blown out, make sure that you, as
Was
Peter's,
this a joke? Was that a joke? Sorry, I thought I was on Trading View. I don't know what that means, so I can't respond to his witticism.
oh,
What's Trading View?
Sartor, it's Trading View is a front end, just like CQG.
So are you saying that they would be, they presumably wouldn't be as negative as I have been. I can't tell how sarcastic he was being.
Okay, well, Brendan asks, would you recommend buying puts here? Brendan, I would suggest that with
Sure.
the moves are 100 handles, and the amount of overextension to the downside is pretty solid, from either short-term or long-term guys. And so if you're buying puts at this volatility, you're playing for a crash, essentially,
Right.
because the mean reversion would bring the VIX back, 10% down, and then it'd probably be 200 handles in the S&P. So Art Cashin used to say betting on a crash is a bad trade. It only happens so infrequently, or the end of the world, right? It doesn't happen that often. So with the VIX at these levels, if you're playing the downside, you have to wait and sell rallies, which you got a slug of today. The problem is that when you're doing that, you're still extremely oversold. And from a mean reversion basis, they can go, as you saw this morning, they rallied 100 handles like nothing. So just make sure you're trading in the right sort of ammunition size.
Well, it's a good question, because if you get a couple of hundred handles higher, then that's when you have to look for buying your puts.
Right. I mean, I guess the structure that we're most looking for in regards to selling a bounce would be, where is the cost of their longs. I guess you could do that from looking at if anybody's longer, any support. Think about it, right? All the bottoms that we're going through are like 2 years old. So those bottoms, there's no support. So it's almost as like we're looking for a roof above our head as the trade, but we're currently not getting the bounce to find the roof. We will get a bounce, but from what level, I don't know, right? And you have that shelf at 4,300. You have today's shelf 3 times up there at 40.50. In the old days, the stop hunters would just lick their chops and would have gotten those stops above 4,300. They would have gotten those stops above 40.5 today. Puts at this point, my friend Walter is doing put rights. He's selling the puts and selling futures because the vol is so expensive. And that the Fed is trying to put a lid on volatility, as they have stated publicly many times. But it's a very dangerous game to be short puts, especially since we're oversold and we're not bouncing, which is, as you know, the recipe for a big dislocation to the downside. And you look at crypto today, which had a massive dislocation to the downside out of nowhere, or had been acting bad. But anyway, I hope that helps.
Someone asked about wheat.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on food, Paul?
You can't dislike it. I mean, I don't have a chart in front of me, so I can't give you a level, but I'm friendly.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you can grow more wheat, and it is affected by rain. So it is not in the same situation as crude oil, which, you have to.
Well, yes, it is. Yes, it is in that you need oil to make the fertilizer, and they won't have the ferts, and so they're going to have 50% yield. And so people are going to die of starvation.
Well, that will mean
so you have to trade it from the long side.
Yeah, there will be riots. I mean, and they've also, you
Yeah.
know, the markets are forward looking. The only question is, you know, vertical to horizontal. And then as Hawkins always says, look for people who are off sides. We used to do that in the ring. You know, you'd see this, we'd always initiate into the stops as though if the buy stops were going off, we could sell those. And all the people who bought that false breakout were caught. We knew we were right. And so in this case, we know people are, in the case of the stocks, we know people are caught higher. Probably in the case of crypto, people are definitely caught higher. Complacency, right, Paul? It's been, what's with the complacency, as though they all believed in the Fed.
Yeah, well, your guy who shall remain nameless, he
A newsletter
he
guy
was
that
very,
a
yeah,
newsletter
he
guy
was
that
very
we
late.
subscribe that
Yeah,
yes, that we
he was.
subscribe to. His name is Stephen Todd. He writes which we got from the McClellan newsletter, who McClellan subscribes to, and has been a standout #1 timer in Holbert's Timers
On the way
Digest
up.
on the way
Yeah.
up. On the way up.
But
And
lead feet on the way down. And he only very recently puked half of his position on one of his funds.
right. And so
That's after 25%. I mean,
yes,
he was 100% long for at least 25% down.
right. And angry that he was puking. But for the people who it's a one-page newsletter, his name is Stephen Todd. I do recommend it. He has been, he is, I do recommend it. And
I don't.
he has a long side bias, just so you know.
Yeah, you could say that.
And so
and all the hubris
that goes with it, right? I mean, essentially, I mean, who's selling weakness? Is anybody selling weakness?
I wish I were.
Right?
But
I mean, no.
I keep waiting for that 10% bounce, but it never comes.
No. And if it comes, right, so many people are short calls against their short puts. Right? You think of like Walter, right? Walter was brazenly telling me he was selling the 3,600 puts on that rally out of the Fed meeting. And I was like, no, this is wrong. And I had to do a Misfits after that day. And I was just like, and then they kept them glued up there all night. And then they cracked them. And Walter's like, what's wrong? I'm like, yeah, this is all just levered longs trying to put lipstick on a pig. And so what has he been doing? He's been selling futures and selling calls the whole way down to hedge his short position. Okay. So if they start up, think about all those people who are caught long, who have all sorts of they've made it more complicated by selling calls or by selling futures. And so if it starts to go up, you're going to need some real structure to stop the thing. If it starts to, remember in the S&Ps when they're going up, didn't they call it like a grease fire rally? It was just like it would go up like.
Yeah.
Would you tell?
Yes, I associate that expression with great emotional pain.
Can you talk about what a grease fire rally is like?
Well, I tend to get passive when they're carrying me out because I can't get them back, and they spike into the close. It's very depressing. You have to fight. There's got to be some kind of solution to that level of depression that is so crippling.
Right. The move is so great that we get the deer in the headlights kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The boiling frog.
Yeah. And then at that point, it's good to have a friend. Like again, Walter's a friend of ours, and Walter would look at me when I was short crude at 142. And it's trading 147. He said, you have to have a stop. And that sort of thing, where that's helpful to have someone to talk to and be like, maybe you should rethink that or just try and stay in business. Right. The first order of the day, I guess we could say, Paul, right, is staying in business.
Well, I would say staying in business or choosing to stay in business, I mean, it's very tempting to give yourself the hook. And I've seriously considered giving myself the hook until I can get the HFT alerts and another screen, which gives me the momentum and the acceleration coming from, for example, tech and tech volatility, because that seems to be my poison of choice lately. But that's just one example of the various things that you get from HFT and
Isn't that, I mean, that's kind of
dark pool money.
isn't that kind of a cool thought? Like you choose to keep yourself in business by puking. You're a loser, right? Like you can freeze, or you actually have to physically choose to, in the face of unknown speed and velocity, to puke your loser.
Yeah, I've yet to do a lot of puking. I did, as you remember, Chris will remember that I puked a truly massive silver position, which was bad. But in fact, that same position, I was net up even after the destruction.
Wasn't that great?
Because I had so many of them that when it went to 27, and then I puked, you know, like a ridiculous amount. I won't say it's too. It was a humbling experience, but I kept. This was the irony. I kept enough that I lost hundreds of thousands when it came off of 27. From 27 to 23, I was long the world, and yet still I had a net gain before I finally puked the massive amount that I finally puked. So yes, there is, even in silver, which was supposed to be, of course, silver is so manipulated, and that's another story. But you know, we have to make our bones of the fact that metals are being suppressed massively, and what we really want to do about that. I think in the face of today's number, we might have made a bottom. I'm hoping.
You know, yeah, right. They can't go. I guess you can't say they can't, but I would suggest that, you know, that the choice of destroying the crypto and leaving the silver be means it's like we're seagulls picking over the remains of a picnic in the metals now, and maybe they go somewhere.
Well, there's a certain point where between the what kind of inventory they have for cash silver or physical silver, and once that decouples a certain amount, they figure they just can't get away with it. They can't in good, not in good conscience, because they have no conscience, but they can't successfully hide the suppression when there's a decoupling of physical to notional.
Do you think that actually that they're worried about whether or not they're hiding?
Well, it depends who is calling them out for it, and how much that information matters to the unwashed. That's a good question.
Right? I think they're at the point where they just, now their end goal is just to control it's happy hour, control the narrative through the asset prices, and they don't care how they get there, but they feel as though the prices will actually determine the news. And so, I mean, how does that help other people? I don't know.
Where do we go from here? We're sort of back at yet another inflection point, except we don't have a bottom.
Right. I mean, right. Like, yeah. Okay. So everybody's like, oh, stocks are washed out. Metals are washed out. Bitcoin is trading on the lows right now as we speak, 28,285 in the May futures. Or I'm sorry, that maybe we are closed. It's after 5 o'clock, so that may not be a fresh print.
What were you just quoting? Sorry.
Oh, Bitcoin.
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 Sorry about my voice, everybody.
I mean,
I personally
I
find
mean,
laryngitis to be very irritating to listen to. I apologize.
I mean, you've been a bear for years, and I assume that it's just predicated on the fact that this whole rally had been front loaded on stimulus, front loaded on Fed balance sheet, front loaded on just like tweak the engine as hard as they can, and then pay the piper down the road. Is that kind of accurate?
Sorry, Chris, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you used to get outraged at the way that, remember you had, what was it, you were at a dinner party or something with a Cuban guy.
Oh
And
God. Yes, the abject lack of scruples about his indifference to the what was it? The guy I was just talking about, Edmund Burke. The notion of any sense of responsibility to the next generation. You know, we want our money. We want the
we want the money now. He was like, I don't care about future generations. He told you, I thought.
Yes, he did. He did. He made it very clear. He was very butch about it.
Yeah,
Cuban.
and as though this was the important thing, is to in other words, to print them as high as possible, to take my money, and then there was no, it was, and
Social Security, including as much he could soak out of Social Security. In addition,
and so
even though he was not
I mean,
really
not,
entitled.
not that it's helping other people, but we could say that that may lead to a lack of a structural integrity of the marketplace, because,
Sure.
right, they
He will
Paul,
angrily have to get out of his position.
I mean, when Paul's parents and grandparents were in the,
Deleverage.
where Paul's parents and grandparents were in the business, the markets were there for the formation of capital and the transfer of risk. And now the markets are momentum based, because there's no valuations, and because there's no hard floor of interest rates to create some sort of Graham and Dodd sort of valuation. We live in this momentum world, and because we live in this momentum world, it was like a shark swimming forward. They had to keep printing these things higher. Well, now they're not
without
printing them higher
without the uptick rule, and so you're vulnerable to attack
at any time. And because our lows are so far away, so long ago, there's no structure in regards to the downside. And since there's no hard valuation metrics, PEs are negotiable, there's certainly no liquidity. And we now, the balance sheet is still at the all-time highs. They're swearing that they're going to reduce it. What if they start using, there's 1.7 trillion in repo money that goes across every day. What if that money starts getting short? I don't know. I don't know. So to all the people who are watching, we're in uncharted territory. I just would suggest that you find a way that you have, first, a stop, second, a good emotional setup. Like, you don't try and trade sleep tired, right?
Find a way to forgive yourself
Yeah.
for any harm that you've done to yourself financially.
I mean, I know you have trouble sleeping, Paul. Do you trade when you're sleep deprived?
Yeah.
And do you still gun a beer if you have a big Poe? I mean, I think that was one of your greatest sort of self-medicating processes.
Well, I find around noon that I get a little shaky lately. And there's nothing I like more. In fact, I wish I didn't have to leave the third world, because I can go to a mom and pop Colmado and gun something at noon without anyone telling me awful things about my character.
Right. And for everybody watching, Paul's departing from his place in Dominican Republic, coming to New York. So maybe he'll join me.
Sadly. Sad. Okay. Yeah, well, that'll be fun. But yeah, I'm not
tomorrow.
looking
He's
forward
doing
to
this
the
tomorrow.
slog north
Tomorrow.
tomorrow early.
So
I
you
haven't
do.
packed.
You of
I
course
haven't
not.
packed. I haven't drained the pool. I haven't done anything.
Well, get on it.
Yeah.
So if people are sleep deprived, I would tell them just to like back it up, trade micros or something small, and then just make sure that you're not fighting with anybody, so you're not taking it out on yourself. And try and have a plan. Think it through. If you're not fully psyched to sit down at the table at your mouse,
Try
and
not to read the emails from the ex.
yeah, definitely not. Have you heard from Rachel?
I think I got 10 emails yesterday.
My condolences.
Yeah.
So 508. Any other questions?
Oh, no questions. That's not a good sign, is
Was
it?
it much less than 1 trillion? Yes, Ryan, the repo money is like 1.7, 1.8 every day in trillion. And then the best advice we have in regards to trading would be look for a roof. And I would suggest that it would be a wide spot on a large data segment of volume profile if you can build that. I don't think the VIX is working. Paul, have you been watching the transports or any of that stuff?
To be honest, no.
Okay, and then Paul's a big fan of the internals. So
Yeah.
and then is there anything on the macro that has you worried?
Well, again, I've been tied up in 4 lawsuits, so I
What do you
haven't really been able to focus.
what do you make of the Russian situation?
Well, I'm very angry about it. How I have been saying that we caused the entire invasion. We pushed him into it, and the fact that we keep doubling down with all the armament, it's very depressing and it's outrageous. We just have to write your congressman, say, please don't do that willingly. Don't go willingly into that next 44 billion payment.
And what do you tell the young people who are now looking at the fact that we've front loaded and now the bill sits on their table?
I've been cursing them every day. So, of course, that sounds kind of a feat, because have I been in Washington doing it? No. What have I really done about it? And the answer is, all I can say is I apologize. I'm against all of it.
And how about this, right? Like they thought that crypto was the answer to fight that, right? Like crypto was going to be.
Oh, yes, I was telling Chris earlier that the situation is disgusting. Oh, Seaver, it's disgusting that the PPT turned their sights on crypto today. It's just, oh, and war. Yeah, I'm a pacifist, and I had this argument with someone. It's absolutely unbelievable, with this woman who's Canadian, who is a leftist, and she actually said with a straight face that a leftist, said that she was demanding that troops, be they Canadian or American, be sent in to the Ukraine. Admittedly, she is second generation Ukrainian, but that's outrageous. And I was arguing that, death is bad. You're sending the flower of the Russian youth and killing all of them is no better than all the Ukrainians that have been killed. Both are completely, what's the word?
But I mean,
I'm just embarrassed of these people.
Circling back to crypto, like wasn't crypto the answer to all the fiat printing?
How could it not be PPT? Who's pounding them? Why would they be washed out? Is it forced selling? I'm sorry, I don't buy that.
Right. So So literally it was, I mean, for all the young people out there who are like, oh, okay, the answer was to had to be crypto because they were mortgaging by printing fiat, they were mortgaging our future to a devalued, hyperinflated dollar, right? And
That's
so,
right. So it's become the latest thing to suppress by the PPT slash central bank.
right, or
Yeah,
all the central
dollar only
banks,
temporarily strong. Agreed.
right? Like all the central bank, like this destroys the hope of that generation.
Yeah, exactly. Which is not good. And frankly, it doesn't surprise me, but I never would have expected it. I actually intended to have a ton more crypto than I have. I just haven't been up. I haven't been able to get up that curve.
What do you make of the
And I have
housing? What do you make of the housing market?
the housing market. Thank God I got out. When I did, I would have never been able to get out
I know,
because
beautiful
I
sale, by the
lived.
way.
It was not that great, but I mean, I got kind of screwed in it, but it was good. The timing was good, and I have issues. I have vaccine remorse, and so I had. I mean, it almost killed me getting out. But at this point,
Here's,
yes, it was good.
I mean, what do you
Yeah,
make? What
and
do you make of the situation of housing? That's been your game for a long time.
housing is going. Well, I'll say what I always say. Housing is going to go into a complete freezer. It's going to go into cardiac arrest and no activity for the next 12 to 18 months minimum, if not 36 months. I can't say exactly, but a minimum of 12 months or 18 months more likely. There will be zero activity in the second house market, and there will be 10 to 15% roll in the primary market, uh, at least. I mean, there'd be a huge gap between the bid. The spread is going to widen. Offers will take a year to come down, and in fact, now is not a good time because the special situations will take a year to accrue, at
Right.
least.
I mean, mortgage rates and wage growth have gone the other way, opposite ways, right? And it's not like it's a liquid. It's not like it's a liquid. You can't click the mouse and sell your shopping center. So, yeah,
No, it's the least liquid. That's right.
right, least liquid of them all. So,
Yeah.
you need the rising tide to lift all boats in real estate, right? I'm buying Paul's house because Paul's buying someone else's house, and we're all making more money. And the exact opposite is happening now, where
Little did they know that it was it was it was a what's the word I'm looking for? It was secretly a forced sale. Not exaggerating, by the way.
yes, I understand. So I hope that answers that question there. I mean that seems so obvious, right? I mean, there's a shortage certainly of
My
housing,
pleasure.
right? Because they haven't been building them, and then there's also a shortage of rental two families and things like that. I know there's shortages of that.
The good news is that there will be good real estate opportunities, but you just have to wait for a year to 18 months to pull the trigger, in my humble opinion.
You remember Joni, right? We used to get a newsletter from.
I worried about her all the time because she seemed suicidal, as were the rest of us.
We're trying to just hope that we could actually have gravity actually take hold
Is
in the
she
market.
is she alive?
Yeah, she's still alive, and she
Where
doesn't
is
write as
she?
much. She is in
What?
Florida. She doesn't write as
Is
much.
she writing?
No. Keith from Hedge Eye talks to her. Keith McCullough. Anyway,
Really?
Joni had a
Is
rule,
that
a
it?
very simple rule that everybody should remember, that prices, she would call it the first like economic law of nature, or something like that. Nature's law of economics is that wages have to meet prices, or prices have to meet wages. And so if one gets too far stretched from the other, there will be a reversion. And so in the case of housing, we would say that wages, essentially the general momentum determinant in housing, according to Joni, was the wage growth and the unemployment rate. In other words, it needed to be a rising tide to lift all boats, as we were talking about. And so In this case, we don't have the wage growth happening and prices are stretched. So while it's transitory supply. Sorry, what a lot. Oh, we lost Paul. I'm
I
sorry.
know.
Oh, you're
I
still
know.
there. Oh, good, you're there. Yeah, we lost your picture. Anyway,
Well, I'm here, but I got down to 20%.
okay,
I
there you are.
don't
You're
see my,
back.
oh, there I am. Yeah, I had to plug it. I had to plug in. Yeah, I have
So
low battery.
do we tell people to keep believing the Fed when they come out and they say things, or no? We tell them to be mindful of the fact that
They have never told the truth in my entire 40 years. And they feel that they're helping us. And Yellen, when she was chair, barked at the senator.
yeah.
So
I watched a senator, as I say, I watched a senator from New Mexico ask Bernanke. He said, "You're going to take rates to zero. What do you do? What do I tell my retirees to do?" And Bernanke looked him square in the face and said, "You tell them to buy stocks." It was on TV. And so now I don't know.
sickening.
Right. So should we?
Who is the guy? Please, someone chime in and say, yes, it's totally disgusting. I like that comment.
I know that's easy picking fruit, Paul, right? So
I know, but I read it and it did make me feel a little better.
all right, so look, if you're trading against the trend, be quick, right? If you're counter trend trading, if you're buying stocks on the dips, you got to flip them. You can't own them forever, right? Counter trend trading, you got to be quick. And if you sell them against a bounce, remember, typically, as Paul can tell you, that it's a rounding top. They're not always spiky tops, right, Paul?
It's all about the initiation. And you have to take the heat. And if you take a lot of heat, you may have to cannonball. And sometimes I do what I call cannon strips. So you have levels of further cannonballing, which is kind of suicidal sounding. But
remember that, right? Their job is to, like they did after the Fed announcement, they kept them up there all night. Their job is to make it very difficult to feel as though you have a decent short on. And so just make sure that you have the mental capital to sustain both the time and the sideways price action. When you come into the structural area, please find the structure that supports the shorting, because everybody wants to squeeze the shorts.
Yeah, that's a good point to say. You really need some structure. You need to have a plan. Of course, you know what Mike Tyson said, till you get punched in the face.
Right.
Right.
And by the way, he did not get charged. You see, some guy was harassing him on a plane and he punched him.
Yeah.
And he did not get charged. They did not file charges. So
I'm surprised because I saw the video.
Yeah, I did not.
Much as I like him.
See the video. So it's 5:20.
Oh God, did you see it? Oh, never mind.
Go drain the pool. I'll see you. You're flying tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm flying tomorrow.
Okay, the weather here is beautiful. It's 72 and sunny. There's boats out. I'm seeing the close hauled on a reef on a southerly. So right out the window.
Well, I hope, did we have
on a
any
reach.
questions? We talked about a lot of stuff. I feel like it wasn't compelling enough because there are no questions, but
yeah, and
maybe
we don't have the answer. I mean, it's very easy to rant about. I love the understanding of how that we have some sort of responsibility to everybody in our future to behave in a way that leaves it better.
I must say, I've been so singularly selfish in my prescription of my life that this is one way I feel a little bit less self-centered. So if there's anything I can tell you in the future when we see more of what is going on and we survive it somehow,
Yeah.
I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Yes. And thank you for coming.
And
Right. I mean, and remember, you
yeah,
said to me the other day when I was like, this is broken, and you were like, bring it on.
right. Well, which was to say, don't hate yourself for missing huge, huge epoch making moves. You have to, again, forgive yourself and get ready for the vol, because the vol is going to allow you to inch back from the abyss. And after all, for macro people, it's the way we're going to survive this, when others will sink into depression and drinking too much and uh, blaming yourself. You have to. I know this is so obvious, but you just have to forgive yourself for all of it.
Yeah. It's a reincarnation every day when you come to the mouse. It's a new day.
Yes, and Kipling. I'm a fan of Kipling, and yes, I will read. I will reread "If," which my grandmother handed to me when she saw how broken I was.
Everybody, thank you for coming. We're gonna wish Daniela happy birthday. It's her birthday, and
Daniela,
yeah,
oh, is Daniela listening?
yes, she watches these. So, hi Daniela,
Hi,
happy birthday.
Daniela.
Okay, and
Happy birthday.
there we go, everybody. Thank you for coming, and good luck. Don't
Is that
don't.
it? Is
Yes,
that a wrap?
that's a wrap. I'm gonna get a drink.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Give me a call, Chris.
Okay.
Okay.